Joining us tonight, I'm Mark Mester. Olivia is going to join us momentarily live tonight from the Palm Springs Power baseball game. But we're going to start with this evening's top story. Authorities have identified the two people who were killed in yesterday's Interstate 10 collision near Cathedral City. Now, we're learning from law enforcement that aside from those two fatalities, 3 others were injured in the crash. Tiani Jadalang joining us live in studio tonight. Tiani spoke with local CHP on the investigation and shares new information tonight.
Mark, at this moment, the cause of the crash is still under investigation, but 49-year-old Miguel Macias from Santa Ana and 58-year-old Francisco Leon out of Desert Hot Springs are the 2 individuals identified who died in the crash. Here's that alarming footage that we brought to you yesterday evening. Officers with CHP's Indio office tell us this footage was likely obtained through dash cameras from vehicles from what it seems to be just ahead of the vehicles involved in the crash. This was near the Bob Hope exit around 7 in the morning yesterday. According to law enforcement, a big rig lost control in the westbound lanes, crashed through the guardrails and flipped into oncoming traffic in the eastbound lanes. The big rig then colliding into several vehicles, resulting in those 2 fatalities. Officers with CHP want to remind drivers to stay aware of their surroundings.
You check your vehicle for safety, number 1. Number 2, you make sure you get enough rest and you follow the guidelines that commercial vehicles and commercial drivers have to follow. As far as other people on the roadways, just make sure that you're always aware of your surroundings. Don't stay too close to these big rigs. Even if a tire comes off these big rigs, it can cause major damage or injury to you. So they're large vehicles, and when you're driving down the freeway, you're sharing this highway with them. And so just be very cognizant of where you are in relation to those big rigs and always keep your safety in mind.
Officer David Torres says the next step for the leading agency is a vehicle inspection for the big rig involved. If you have any information on the collision, CHP asks that you call the number you see at the bottom of your screen. Live in studio, I'm Tiani Jadalang, NBC Palm Springs.
Tiani, thank you. Giving you a live look this Friday evening from our Agua Caliente casino camera high above Rancho Mirage, so in the pool right there. We're going to send things over to Chloe Carlson, who's tracking our forecast for the end of the work week and looking at things for this weekend. Hey, Chloe.
Well, hey, Olivia and Mark, have some great news. Take a look at this behind me. This weather map, no weather advisory. So yes, those extreme heat warning, that heat advisory for Southern California has expired. So that's good news there. I will say it's not like we're going to be seeing much cooler temperatures, but we are out of the extreme heat warning as we get into the weekend. So happy Friday, everyone. 110 for the high today. So just slightly above average for this time of year. 108 is normal for us as we get into the middle of July. Record-breaking numbers at this point are all over 120 degrees, 121 back in 1958. Not quite there today. That is okay. So for tomorrow, we'll have that ridge of high pressure kind of getting pushed out of the region with that trough that is passing to the north of us. So temperatures slightly subside as we head into the weekend. We'll still stay slightly above average. Breezy winds from the west. So still that onshore flow with us. Some marine layer there at those coastal cities. So hot and breezy for our Saturday. Here's a look at your Comfort Air 3-day forecast. So we will be staying, above 110 degrees for the weekend, but then we are tracking a slight change as we get into next week. Some monsoon moisture could make an impact on our weather as we get into the middle of next week, maybe bring us back to around average or slightly below average. We'll break that down more in that full forecast coming up.
All right, our thanks to Chloe for that. We'll hear from her a little bit later on in tonight's newscast. Tonight, one local business is getting a second chance, opening up after having to close down due to losing inventory in the Altadena fire. Our Brett Rosen tonight with that story.
Carmela's Ice Cream Company here in Palm Springs has been closed down for 5 months due to losing much of their inventory in the Altadena fires. Today, the shop has reopened, and the owner tells me seeing the community come out and support them warms our heart.
Countdown on 3, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
Today, members of the Palm Springs Chamber of Commerce and the Palm Springs Mayor, Rhonda Hart, came out in support of Carmela Ice Cream Company, a business who's been a staple in downtown Palm Springs for the past 2 years. They were shut down for months because their primary production facility was destroyed in the Altadena fire due to power shutting off. The owner, Jessica Marotti, says about $75,000 worth of inventory was destroyed due to the LA fires, something she said takes an emotional toll.
It's definitely a very stressful experience to go through with a lot of ups and downs, especially the early months of the after the fires, of kind of like every day would be a little bit different.
Carmilla Ice Cream Company was shut down for a total of 5 months. In a stressful time like that, Mortarati says having community support was the most important thing when trying to reopen again.
The community has been very strong with this, and we've had a lot of support from our community in terms of like donations or grants and things like that, and just like a lot of positive energy to that helped kind of keep us going, honestly.
Locals coming out to support the reopening say it's exciting to see their go-to ice cream shop come back to business.
We'd come here to this area at least like once or twice a month, and when we heard that it got shut down, it was pretty devastating, but we understood, with all the fires and recovery, it was also exciting to get it back.
I wasn't aware that they had closed because of the fires in Los Angeles, so it's really wonderful that they've reopened, and even more wonderful that they're giving something back to the community.
Mortarati's daughter also helps out with the business. So with it being a family affair, Mortarati says she hopes reopening can set a good example for her daughter, teaching her to never give up.
The decision to keep going rather than give up is a really strong message and lesson to learn and to demonstrate to your kids when you have that opportunity. So that's really valuable, I think, long term for them.
Now, another thing owner Jessica Mortarati had told me was that the first time they opened up, they didn't have a ribbon cutting ceremony. So having it today was not just for them to be reopened after 5 months of closing down, but it was also a second chance at having that real grand opening they've been wanting. Here in Palm Springs, I'm Brett Rosen for NBC Palm Springs.
All right, our thanks to Brett for that report. Tonight is NBC Palm Springs night over at the Palm Springs Power baseball game. We are less than 1 hour away from tonight's first pitch. Let's go live to Tim O'Brien, Caitlin Kelly, and Olivia Sandusky, who are joining us from the stadium. And who's throwing out the first pitch tonight? Is it Tim, Olivia, or both?
That's right, Mark. It's actually both of them. They are both throwing out the first pitch tonight, just like last year. And Tim, I got to say, I was listening to our friends on 102.7 The Fanatic earlier, and they said, you better be throwing it from the bump tonight.
Yeah, you got to go from the mound. Yeah. And you can't bounce it, so you're very limited in what you can do. From the bump, straight, throw a strike.
That's what we did last year.
Perfect strikes.
Yeah. It was perfect strikes last year.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be repeating. I've been, on the IL a bit, so we'll have to see. Well, I know if it was me, I would have the yips if I were up there, so I'm excited to watch you both hit the mound. But above that, we've got a lot of star power here. We just saw, of course, Patsy walking around. What are you looking forward to most about this evening in front of all of the NBC Palm Springs faithful?
My favorite part of tonight is when our viewers come out and they start talking to us and we get to hear more about our community. It was so much fun last year when we got to hang out with some people because we're always behind the camera, so we don't always get to see you in person, and that's really the best part of the job is when we meet our community.
Yeah, it's funny, you don't know who's always watching, right? Yeah. You don't always pay attention to ratings, numbers like that, but they'll come out and they'll say, hey, they tell you something you said on a Wednesday night 4 months ago.
Right?
Like, oh, I guess they are. I don't even remember saying it, and they do, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, and of course, we're going to have so much fun here, and of course, the concession stand will be opening. Doors just opened here inside Palm Springs Stadium. We're already starting to see people file in under the desert's largest misting system. What do you guys think? I think the weather's actually pretty nice.
You were selling it at 5 o'clock. You said it's not too bad out here. I said, I'll believe it when I see it, and I go out there at 6 o'clock, and they were right. I don't think I'm even sweating yet, maybe a little bit, but
yeah, it's definitely a gorgeous breeze out here. A lot of fun to be had here at Palm Springs Stadium, but we're going to be back here a little bit later on in our broadcast. So until then, Tim O'Brien, Olivia Sandusky, I'm Caitlin Kelly. We're sending it back to you, Mark, in studio.
All right, thank you, guys. We'll speak to you a little bit later on. Moving to some other headlines tonight, a journey that began in a small desert town is now taking center stage. Estefania Rodriguez, a Desert Hot Springs native, is representing California in the Miss U.S. Latina pageant. It's a national competition celebrating culture and beauty. Our Alondra Campos joining us live in studio tonight with more on her story. Alondra?
That's right. Estefania Rodriguez currently holds the title for Miss California Latina and is now competing among many other women across the country for the Miss U.S. Latina crown. But what many don't know is that her story began right here in the Coachella Valley, where she learned that it takes more than a crown to win the heart of her community. With every step she takes on the runway, 23-year-old Estefania Rodriguez carries the heart and soul of her community and Latino culture. But her dream of becoming a pageant queen began long before she ever competed on a national stage.
It wasn't until I was maybe like 16 You know, I was offered to be Princess of Desert Hot Springs. I said, why not? And through it, I did a lot of like volunteering. I went to different events. A few years later, I actually competed for their first actual pageants. That was my first actual title as Queen Desert Hot Springs.
Shortly after her big win, Estefania attended UC Riverside and continued to participate in pageants as a means to obtain scholarships, become more involved in her community, and rediscover herself.
I grew up being a very shy person. I was always the quiet girl in class, you know, focused on my studies. When I started competing, I came out of this bubble that I was in, and that's when I started, you know, being a more outgoing person. I actually enjoyed conversations with people, and it was thanks to pageantry.
As a daughter of immigrant parents, Estefania remembers the importance of staying true to her roots from a very young age. Years later, competing in pageants has become her personal mission to represent her family's heritage.
I grew up speaking Spanish in my home, so now being part of these organizations and actually competing, I've tried to develop a stronger speaking ability, and I've taken classes for it, and it's because of that. You know, there's an emphasis on speaking Spanish, which comes a lot with, you know, familiar ties.
With discipline and preparation, Estefania will now compete on the biggest stage of her career during the U.S. Miss Latina pageant in Miami, Florida.
I'm hoping to meet other girls across the nation. Looking forward to sharing that same similarity that we have. We all are Latinas. We all have very similar traditions, or we share some aspect of it.
As the big night approaches, Estefania says she feels ready to compete, but even more so to share her story and become more than a model, a role model.
I do want to encourage young girls that if there's opportunities or if there's a door that's closed, you make sure that that door is open with a lot of perseverance and having the passion for wanting to fulfill that goal. You'll be able to open that door.
The competition for the Miss U.S. Latina title will take place from July 28th to July 30th at the Miccosukee Casino and Resort in Miami, Florida. We wish Estefania the best of luck and hope she returns with the crown. For NBC Palm Springs, I'm Alondra Campos.
Alondra, thank you for that. After the break this evening, as the temperatures rise, you might find it harder to stay active. We have tips this evening on how to keep your exercise routine. First, let's give you a look at your gold and silver prices. You're watching NBC Palm Springs at 6 o'clock on this Friday evening, and we're back right after this.
Committed to covering our community. You're watching NBC Palm Springs at 6.
probably not the first time you've been told that exercise is critical for both physical and mental health. But as the temperatures start to rise, and they definitely do here at home, you might find it harder to stay active. But experts say continuing your exercise routine is important no matter the season. In tonight's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither has tips on how to safely exercise when it gets hot.
Your body's need for exercise doesn't take a summer break.
I tell my patients, keep active, make sure you're exercising, doing your cardio 30 minutes a day, with cardio aerobic activity, putting in some weight resistance training on top of that during the week.
Dr. Jesse Bracamonte with Mayo Clinic says that while staying active year-round is important, exercising in the heat can put you in harm's way if you're not careful. He says you have to be mindful of the heat, humidity, and dryness.
Just be intentional and be careful out in the summer months, particularly if you're not used to these summer months or the high humidity or the heat waves that come along.
If your exercise routine takes you outdoors, Bracamonte says to go out when the sun's not as strong, early in the morning or in the evening when it's cooler. And hydration is key. Before exercise, he recommends drinking at least 20 to 30 ounces of water to get the body started in hydration. And during exercise, rehydrating every 15 to 20 minutes to keep the body from depleting itself. And after being active, continue that hydration.
You want your urine to look like clear lemonade. That's a sign of hydration rather than dark apple juice color.
Bracamonte says to also wear appropriate clothing. He recommends loose, light material. And if you do exercise outdoors, find a place that has shade if possible.
Staying cool is really key.
Good 3. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
To some news across the region this evening, you're looking at the very moment Congressman Dr. Raul Ruiz was denied access to the Adelanto Immigration and Customs Enforcement Facility. According to Ruiz's office, the congressman was turned away at the gates due to a new Department of Homeland Security policy that increases the required notice for all congressional visits from 72 hours to 7 days. The lawmaker says he announced his visit with fellow Riverside Democrat Representative Norma Torres earlier this week.
We have heard stories of unsanitary and overcrowded conditions, medical neglect and psychological trauma, widespread violations of due process, indiscriminate raids sweeping up people regardless of immigration status or criminal record, masked and militarized ICE agents storming homes, schools, and places of worship.
Ruiz has also called for the immediate resignation of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem for what he says are her violation of the Constitution and our constitutional rights. Giving you a live look from our Indian Wells Golf Resort camera on this Friday evening. Chloe Carlson standing by with your forecast, and we'll also check back in with our Tim O'Brien, Olivia Sandusky, and Caitlin Kelly, who are at tonight's Palm Springs Power Game, where it's NBC Palm Springs night. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Giving you a live look tonight from our Walter Clark Highway 111 camera in Rancho Mirage for a check on the forecast for the end of this work week and also how things are going to look into the weekend. We're going to send things over to Chloe Carlson.
Well, hey, Mark and Olivia. Slightly cooler temperatures today across the desert. I will take it. I've been showing the highs across the country, so let's just keep it going. It's Friday. 110 in Phoenix as well today, so they are above 110 degrees. Comes as no surprise for us. Boise, Idaho, they're 91 degrees for the high today, 82 in Seattle. For those coastal cities, San Francisco, 68 for the high today. It's crazy to think that they are in the same state. 77 in Boston. We are 89 degrees for the high in Miami there in Florida. Overnight tonight, we'll stay in the high 70s, low 80s here on the desert floor. 80 also in 29 Palms, 52 overnight for all of our birds are up there in Big Bear. As far as surface moisture, a little bit higher than we are normally seeing the last couple of weeks, 5% for that relative humidity. We're 15% through the weekend. Not much day-to-day change, at least through the weekend and early next week. As far as future wind potential this evening for the wind corridor, there, Whitewater winds will get 30-mile-per-hour sustained winds, so those gusts will get into the 40s. Some of those areas, isolated areas, into the 50s. So as we head into the weekend, we'll call it breezy. No wind advisories being issued, so good news there as far as the winds go. I talked about this a little bit earlier in the show. This is what we're tracking for last week. We're going to keep an eye on this. So we have that high pressure system to the east of us. And because of those winds, I've showed this before, talked about this before, we have those clockwise winds drawing up moisture from the south. So we could see some monsoonal moisture affecting the southwest as we get into late next week. So that means a little bit of that cloud cover as far as showers go. And probably not much for us here on the desert floor. We'll probably say more towards our mountains, maybe a little bit in the high desert. That's what this map is showing right now, but it will cool us down a little bit, so we'll be slightly below average as we get into late next week. So it can also be a little bit humid as well. So here, look at that. There's a look at that Comfort Air 7-day forecast. Above 110 degrees for the weekend. We're cooling down to below average 104 by next Friday.
The NBC Palm Springs Sports Desk with Tim O'Brien. Brought to you by Agua Caliente Casinos.
It is NBC Palm Springs night over at Palm Springs Power in their home game. Let's go to Tim O'Brien, Caitlin Kelly, and Olivia Sandusky. In fact, you know what? Let's just check in with Caitlin Kelly. Caitlin, I'm presuming that Olivia and Tim are warming up their arms right now to throw out tonight's first pitch?
Mark, you couldn't be more right. I've got Tim right here, Olivia behind me, and they are warming up those arms, getting ready for the first pitch. A lot of people here excited about seeing what the NBC Palm Springs team can do from the bump. And to help me talk about NBC Palm Springs night a little bit more, I'm bringing on team president Andrew Starkey. Andrew, talk to me about what fans can expect tonight.
Well, I think they can expect another great baseball game from the Palm Springs Power. We've got our backs up against the wall. We've got to win tonight. We got to win tomorrow night to be able to keep our playoff hopes alive. This team, we're 1-1 against them this season. They're going to throw a great pitcher at us. We've got Trevor Eby going for us, a local Palm Desert guy. So we're putting our eggs in his basket, and we're hoping for a victory. So fans are going to see a fun night.
Yeah, a fun night indeed. And my understanding, you guys are currently in third place, but the number 1 and number 2 teams in the league, they're actually tied. So a win tonight can really catapult this Palm Springs Power team up the ranks, correct?
Absolutely. And we've got 4 games left against those 2 teams. So we're in control of our own destiny. But what better place to do it than Palm Springs Stadium? We certainly got an advantage playing at home. Our fans, our music, a field we're familiar with, and our Palm Springs weather.
Yeah, and you know, we've seen a lot of stud pitching. Talk to me a little bit more about Trevor Eby and what we can expect from him on the bump tonight.
Well, you're going to see a guy who pitches anywhere from the mid to upper 80s, has a great changeup, commands his pitches in the zone. He doesn't walk a whole lot of guys, knock on wood, and you know, he goes out and he competes. He gives you everything he's got on a nightly basis. He pitched for us last year until he got injured, unfortunately, but he had a great high school career, a great junior college career, and he's had a couple great years in 4-year baseball.
Well, speaking of pitching, we've got 2 ringers warming up right here. Of course, we've got Olivia Sandusky behind us right here. Tim O'Brien with the cannon throwing out the ball. What sort of tips and tricks do you have for these guys based on what you saw from them last year?
Well, first off, I'm not going to give Olivia any tips. She's the All-American, so we're just going to let her go out there and do her thing. With Tim, throw it as hard as you can and aim for the top of the head, and make sure you step all the way up on the mound. Don't go in front. Big boys go from the top of the mound.
Big boys go from the top of the mound, so that is where we will see our Tim O'Brien for right here live in Palm Springs Stadium. I'm Caitlin Kelly. That's Andrew Starkey. We're going to see you guys a little bit later on this evening.
And now the Agua Caliente Entertainment Report, brought to you by Agua Caliente Casinos.
Justin Bieber dropped a surprise new album late last night. Swag is the Canadian singer's first studio album in 4 years. The album's 21 tracks feature guest appearances from a slew of artists. Swag is the follow-up to Bieber's previous album called Justice, which he released in 2021. We're going to take a quick break. We're back right after this. I'll be back here for the news at 11. Please join me then. Good night.